friends, this is a place of belonging. Whether you're present in this room or you're joining us online, we sing ourselves into community as we focus on being here. We've gotten through the getting here. Now let's invite each other to be here. Welcome to this spiritual gathering we create with each other as we take time to sing and to pray and to reflect and to open to wisdom for our living. Welcome to those of you who are returning from your summer journeys and those of you who are coming back from your staycations and those who are joining this circle for the very first time. And those of you who are gathering with us online from various places across the country and around the world. For those who are gathering as the SSUC community in Saskatoon. To those who are here visiting family and friends. And to those of you who hold this circle as a safe place of spiritual quest, day after day, week after week, year after year. This is a place of belonging, a place where you have a place, whatever your age, your gender, your sexual orientation, your gender identity, your race, your religion, whatever your search, or whatever brings you here today. This is a safe place for our laughter and our tears, for our questions and our fears, for our wonder and our amazement, a safe place for our joy and our serenity. Together, may we open to all that this time holds for us.
When we light this candle with one another, what we're saying to each other is that in the midst of whatever life brings us, whether it's bright sunshiny days or cloudy rainstorms, whether it's ease, whether it's challenge and difficulty, whether there's fear and trepidation and anxiety around our days and the things that are coming up, or whether we're living without a care in the world, we're suggesting that this light is always present. We're suggesting that the light that dwells in each of us is enough. That when it gets dim, we brighten it for each other. This light reminds us that we can burn brightly if for ourselves, maybe for others. Whether it's dark in our day or as bright as the sun, this light can shine for us and for those around us. We're so grateful when we come to this gathering because it can refresh, renew, reignite our light. It can also help us to remember and be grateful. We're here gathered on Treaty 6 land. We're gathered in the midst of diversity. We are all unique. And we look around the room and we see reminders of the teachings of the elders. The teachers of Cree, of Dakota Sioux, of Métis, of Deneta, of many other tribes and nations. And we're also reminded of symbols of our own traditions and our own wisdom. And we put it all together and we share it with one another. And we're grateful that we can meet in this place, on this land, and be together once again. Let's sing our welcome. Let's sing our gratitude. As if we're able, we'll stand and be part of this river that runs through me and you and all that we see and touch.
River of
Our time for all ages is upon us, otherwise known as story time. Anyone who wants to come to the carpet is welcome. You can be small or you can be tall. You can be a student or a teacher. You can be loud or quiet. You can be quick or slow. You're all welcome on the carpet. And I'll back up so that you can make use of the front of the carpet too. Good morning, everyone. You all look wonderful this morning, and you all look ready for a story. Did you all do some new things this week? Did you do some new things? What did you do? You played with friends? What else? You went to guides? Lovely. Was that the first time? Was it the first week? Lovely. Fort Edmonton. Thank you, Mom. What else? What else?
Watch television.
Wow, that sounds fun. What else, Kai?
I'm in kindergarten.
Kindergarten. Oh, how exciting. What about you?
I'm in kindergarten.
Oh, yes. So you had some fun first.
Started grade 3.
Ooh, grade 3. How about you?
Eskimos.
You went to an Eskimos game. Well, that's a lot of fun new things to do. Hoo la la, and probably more too. I did some new things too, and sometimes they're really exciting and fun, and sometimes they're scary to do new things. And no matter what we do, I think sometimes it's the most scary for me when I'm worried if I'm going to have fun or I'm going to find a friend or if I'm going to feel like I belong or like there's people there like that will be friendly. I get worried about that. So I thought that maybe today we could read a story about that called Pebble. It's a story about belonging, and it's a story by Susan Millord. There once was a pebble on a rocky shore. It was small and round and nearly smooth. Can you picture that? Can you picture a tiny pebble that's really smooth, tiny and round? Each morning the seabirds sang to the pebble, and each afternoon the ocean breezes gently teased it. The pebble was warmed by the sun and bathed by the rain. On clear nights, it was dazzled by the stars. Sometimes a storm pounded the shore and the sea threw itself over the pebble. That was exciting, even a little frightening. Then the winds would die down and the sea would retreat and the pebble would return to its small and round and nearly smooth life. But the pebble wanted more. If I were a boulder, the pebble said, I might be part of a stone wall or the foundation of a great building. You will never be a part of a stone wall or building, the other rocks pointed out. You're too small. If I were a grain of sand, the pebble said, I could be shaped into a sand castle at the beach or melted into a piece of glass for a fine window. Not in a million years, said the other rocks with a laugh. You're too big. If I had flecks of mica, the pebble said, or a blaze of shining white, maybe then I would be something special. The other rocks advised him, just be what you are. The Pebble felt a longing it couldn't put a name to. There must be more to life than just sitting here on this beach, the Pebble thought, but I don't know what. Life was good after all, the sky often a brilliant blue and the air tasted of salt. There were crabs that would tickle the Pebble sometimes. And there was nothing so beautiful as the full moon dancing on the water. One day, a boy walked along the shore with his mother and father. The boy let the seawater swirl around his ankles, and he watched the gulls swoop overhead, and he laughed as the shell he was reaching for started to move. Warmed by the sun and by everything around him, the boy was filled with a sense of wonder. When it was time to leave, the boy asked his parents to wait. "I won't be long," he told them. "I just need to find something." The boy wandered down the beach, and he noticed a smooth shard of beach glass. "This'll remind me of the color of the sea," the boy said. But it wasn't quite what he was searching for, so he put it down. A little farther along, he spotted a white feather. "This will remind me of the noisy seagulls." But the feather wasn't exactly what he had in mind either. The boy picked up a shell that reminded him of the creatures on the seashore, and he turned it over and over in his hands, pondering, thinking. But then he saw it. It was small and round and nearly smooth. It fit perfectly in his palm, and the boy knew at once, "This will be my pocket pebble. It will remind me always of this wonderful day." He called out to his mom and dad, "I found what I was looking for." The pebble felt the warmth of the boy's hand all around it. It was delighted as the boy ran his fingers over the pebble's smallness and roundness and nearly smoothness, and the pebble knew at once. "And I have found what I was looking for," said the pebble. The end. You know how to do it. I just want to say one thing about this book. It's kind of silly to have a whole book about finding a pebble on the beach. But remember when I started out asking you all the new things that you've been doing lately? All of those things have one thing in common. We all want to feel like we find that special thing. We all want to feel like we can belong. And we all want to have, we don't need 40 friends. We don't need 100 friends. We'll feel good if we have one friend, one special person that can make us feel like we belong and that we can be happy. So, I love that Pebble reminds us that we just need to look for that one special thing, that one special person, that one special activity that makes us feel like, "Oh, this is me." So, that's my wish for you. With all the new things you're doing, I wish you one really special friend. If you've got more than that, yay! But I wish you one really great special friend, and I wish you a special thing that you're doing that makes you feel like you are doing exactly the right thing, that you're doing something really fun, that you're doing something that is just you. And that's where we all belong, when we can do something that's just us. So thank you for sharing this story today. I want to tell you about all the things that are happening, because there's new things happening today too. So the very first new thing that's happening is that we now have a preschool room and a preschool program. So if you're not yet in school, like in kindergarten or grade 1, you can have a very special room all to yourself. You don't all have to squeeze in that room back there with the toys, because we have another room full of toys. Oh my goodness! And we have time to play, and we have songs to sing, and activities to do, and it'll be so much fun. So we've got a preschool program, And we've got our Kids Spirit program for kindergarten and up to grade 5. And parents and helpers and loved ones, you can decide which program is best for your child. There's no hard age lines, but wherever feels right. And then we've got Youth Cafe, which is for if you're in grade 6 or up, you're welcome to Youth Cafe. So there's lots of choices and there's lots of things to do. So we are all today going to go all together as a group out that main door because it helps us to know where to go if there's just one choice. We're all going to go out that door. And I want to just have a note to parents or loved ones of the children. Some of you may have filled out a registration form for our programs this morning that you find on the table in the foyer. If you didn't, it's no problem. But please, sometime today before you go home, please fill out a form that lets us know a little bit more about your child and how we can help them the best. So it's time to go. Let's go have some fun.
There are 3 kind of meta-stories that shape the identity of the Hebrew inheritance of our tradition, the people of ancient Israel. There's the story of Exodus, a narrative of liberation. And there's the story of exile, a narrative of disorientation and reorientation. And there's a story of its temple and temple practices, a narrative of the practices that distinguished them from their neighbors. This story we're going to share is a river story that closes the chapter on that great epic escape from the slavery of Egypt, from years and generations of wandering in the wilderness, and now being poised at the final barrier to land where they will fight the Canaanites to claim as their own. There's one last river to cross before their conquest and settlement era begins. It's the Jordan River, and this is their story. When the whole nation had finished crossing over the Jordan, Joshua summoned 12 men from the people, one from each tribe of the Israelites. And Joshua said to them, Pass before the Ark of the Covenant into the middle of the Jordan, and each of you take a stone on your shoulder, one for each tribe of the Israelites, so that this might be a sign to you. And when your children ask you in time to come, what do those stones mean to you? Then you'll tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off, and the priests and all the people walked across on dry land. So these stones shall be to the people a memorial forever. The people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they camped in Gilgal on the eastern border of Jericho. And those 12 stones that they took out of the Jordan, Joshua set up in Gilgal. And he said to the Israelites, when the children ask their parents, what do these stones mean? And you'll let your children know it was here we crossed over the Jordan on dry land. In this legend, passed down in the writings of ancient Israel, we hear one of the many stories that shapes the identity of a people. This is a poem from Alison Luterman entitled Because Even the Word Obstacle is an Obstacle. Try to love everything that gets in your way. The Chinese women in flowered bathing caps, murmuring together in Mandarin, doing leg exercises in your lane while you execute 36 furious laps. One for every item on your to-do list. The heavy-bellied man who goes thrashing through the water like a horse with a harpoon stuck in its side, whose breathless tsunami rocks you on your course. Teachers, all. Learn to be small and swim through the obstacles like a minion, without grudges or memory. Thinking obstacle is another obstacle. Try to love the teenage girl lounging idly against the ladder, showing off her new tattoo. "Sa vie est la mienne," this life is mine, in thick blue-black letters on her ivory instep. Be glad she'll have to look at it her whole life. And keep going, keep going. Swim by an uncle in the lane next to yours who's teaching his nephew how to hold his breath underwater, even though kids aren't allowed in at this hour. Someday, years from now, this boy who is kicking and flailing in the exact place you want to touch and turn will be a young man at a wedding on a boat, raising his champagne glass in a toast, when a huge wave hits, washing everyone overboard, and he'll come up coughing and spitting like he is now, but he'll come up like a cork, alive. So your moment of impatience must bow in the service of a larger story. Because if something is in your way, it's going your way. the way of all beings, towards darkness, towards light. In the words of this contemporary poet, our thoughts Many of us are returning from summer travels or the experiences of the Fringe or summer festivals in our staycations. And if you're anything like me, you might have discovered that you forgot to pack something really important. You might have remembered to bring your sunscreen and your hat. You might have remembered to pack your passport, take your keys, bring your wallet, keep your phone, and have forgotten to pack that little scrap of the poet's wisdom in your pocket for those summer journeys. Maybe the first thing we need to pack every day before we set out on that day's journey is that little pocket wisdom that opened the poem we heard a moment ago. Try to love everything that gets in your way. Really? Everything? Traveling always reminds me of my less than shining relationship with everything that gets in my way. My impatience with the one who stands in the aisle intent in organizing his overhead bin and his seat pocket and making himself comfortable for the flight, while he's totally oblivious to the queue in the aisle behind him who can't even get close to their seat until he gets in his. Me too. Drives me crazy too. Or my fear that that baby in the row ahead of me is going to cry for that entire 12-hour flight. Or my frustration with those who step off the train and stop right there in the middle of the walkway so that the crowd has to find a way around them. Or with the person who squeezes ahead of me in a long, slow African lineup at immigration wearing a T-shirt advertising their relationship with Jesus. Or the one who steps into the picture I've been waiting patiently to take when there's no one else in the frame. Or the intrusion of a phone call that we have to listen to because someone is thinking it's just too important not to place this trade while they're standing in line at the boarding gate giving us all the details about it. traveling always reminds me of my impatience with whatever gets in my way and my tendency to characterize whoever and whatever gets in my way as an obstacle. And even the best of journeys, the best of experiences our lives hold, invariably we meet obstacles wherever we go. And it's hard to love everything that gets in the way. And it's not easy to learn to be small and swim through the obstacles like a minion without grudges or memory. But what if we don't? We risk losing the empathy and compassion that keeps human life human. We risk losing our place in the family of things to a misplaced sense of privilege and entitlement. We risk seeing each other as objects to overcome instead of subjects to love. Some of the foundational stories that have shaped our Jewish and Christian traditions are stories of obstacles, of an ancient people's relationship with obstacles, with the obstacle of infertility when you're a small population, with migrating because of famine or water shortages, with relationships with neighboring nations, with surviving in a desert landscape, with a thirst for power and land and access to resources. We inherit these important tribal stories that created and shaped the identity of a particular people. They are myths and legends, archetypal stories that teach us something about the truth of life. And they don't necessarily teach us behaviors to emulate, but they teach us something about the good and the bad and the ugly of our effort to be diverse and particular human communities. One of these stories of our ancients and their encounter with obstacles is that story that opens the book of Joshua, that story we heard a moment ago, a terrible and tragic series of tales of colonization, stories that have been repeated countless times in our human history. As the brutal story goes, this people who've known their fair share of discrimination and exploitation have left great economic hardship in Egypt. In the world of the story, for several generations, they've been making a life in the Sinai Desert and in the part of the world we currently call the country of Jordan. And now they're about to lay claim to a productive land on the other side of the Jordan and settle there. But there's a few obstacles. There's a river separating where they are from where they want to be. And like most of these missions where we're seeking better fortunes, or we're seeking a more secure future, or we're seeking to escape persecution or hunger, but the new land isn't empty land just waiting to be home to homeless people. As this legend of ancient Israel tells their story, the river magically and mysteriously and majestically and miraculously opens to them when their priests stand on stones in the middle of the river and the people cross on dry land without even having to get their feet wet. This story bookends their wilderness journey so that it ends the way it began. Their story began with an obstacle to their escape, the Sea of Reeds, the Red Sea. And this obstacle now at the end of their wilderness experience is the Jordan River. In each case, the obstacle is overcome when waters supernaturally separate to give them passage on dry ground. The symbolism and the superlatives of these stories help us know we're not reading history, we're immersed in the murky world of mythology. And these stories are told to create a unifying narrative that reinforces a particular people's sense of identity. So in the world of the story, once they're safely on the far side of the river, their leader Joshua sends 12 of them back into the river to carry stones from the river, 1 stone for each of the 12 tribes of the people. And with these stones, they build a monument to mark their success in overcoming the obstacle and entering the land. We've always been into monuments as a way to tell our stories. We have cenotaphs and gravestones. We have historical markers to preserve memory of a battle or a history-altering event. We have makeshift monuments to mark the scene of an accident and remember the tragic loss of life. We have places where we've piled stone upon stone so that someone will ask, what do these stones mean? What memory is preserved in this place? Joshua's memorial stones would mean something very different to those who are settling the land than it meant to those whose land was being invaded. Just like our stacks of stones tell only something of our story as settlers and fail to tell the story of those who were here for many generations before our ancestors arrived. In these stories passed down by our Hebrew ancestors, we have only the story of the settlers who conquer. And we have to imagine the perspective of those who were invaded and displaced so that we can write a different narrative with our lives. I can't help but think how different the story would be if those stones had been left in the river. If this story could be told as a tale in which these newcomers resist the temptation to see the river as an obstacle to overcome, as a resource to harness, as an element to conquer. If they had a different relationship with the river, they might have created a different relationship with the people whose lives lay beyond that river. It might have yielded to an understanding that human community isn't created by conquest. It could have given us a collection of stories that weren't brutal tales of invasion and conquest, but stories of a Hebrew people and Canaanite people creating a cooperative way of sharing the gifts of the land and the gifts of their society in ways that would have enriched one another. If they and we could relate to the river as something going our way instead of something in our way. If it weren't an obstacle to surmount, perhaps it could inspire a different understanding of the people living in this land for generations, other than seeing them as an obstacle, and a different kind of empathy for those who were arriving with the scars of displacement and hardship and but it isn't too late to write a different story of inclusion and diversity and respectful and generous community with one another, with those whose life is long in the wisdom of this land and have much to teach us, and those whose parents and grandparents came to this land bringing other ways of knowing, and those coming to this land seeking safety and security and opportunities for a better and more peaceful life. We have the tendency to characterize certain circumstances in our lives as obstructions to our happiness, as things that stand in the way of our peace and joy, obstacles to surmount, barriers to our success or our prosperity. But what if we were to change our relationship with obstacles? What if it wasn't about conquering the disease or winning the argument or taking our place in ways that displace others? What if we could change the way we relate to the obstacle as part of the landscape of our journey? What if we could find the wisdom to befriend our obstacles, to be curious about the story of someone who stands in our way instead of yielding to the impatience that turns them into a stone we need to move out of the way? What if we could let our impatience bow in the service of a larger story and see someone who's in our way as someone who's going our way? That we're all in this together. What if we could leave the stones in the river and instead build hope and capacity with each other? Models of thriving community instead of monuments to winners and losers. What if we really could try to love everything that gets in the way, because it really is going our way. It's part of the way. It's one of the teachers of the way. It would begin, wouldn't it, as all things begin, with the choice to love what gets in the way, even when it's us that gets in the way. One of the things that brings us together in circles like this is to find ways with each other to strengthen our intention, to build the world we dream of, to live in the ways that honor our highest values and our truest sense of what is good and right and worthy. And so we take this moment to share some words with one another as a way of praying to strengthen our intention to live in those ways that will create the kind of community we will be pleased to offer the generations that come behind us. We offer these words with one another as our prayer this day. We live in the great mystery of life's ebb and flow, in the midst of ever being and becoming. May we open to the sacred energy that is like a river running in us, flowing freely at times, obstructed at other times, finding its course, sensing its source. May its current ever reshape us, rearrange our priorities, refresh us as stones washed by an ancient and new. May this time we share together help it to be so. I want to express gratitude for all the ways each of you contribute to this community. You contribute by the gift of your presence in this circle and in other ways and times we gather, in the ways you offer your time to the important work we do in this community and beyond it, to this willingness to open and share your experience, your wisdom, your stories, your questions, your search, and to the ways you support us with your financial support. And just a reminder that there are several ways to do that. There's a box at the back that we invite your contributions of cash or checks. You can contribute online at our website. You can contribute by pre-authorized remittances that come out of your bank account directly. And you can contribute by purchasing grocery cards. And the congregation receives a portion of that back as revenue to us. And so we invite you to give in whatever ways you can of your time, of your talent, of the gifts that life has given to you. As we take our leave of this circle, we take the light that has been strengthened in us by the songs we've sung, by the prayers we've shared, by the thoughts that have come to us, by the gifts of one another's presence, by the wisdom of our tradition, by the wisdom of the tradition of others. We take that light. We don't extinguish it. We simply transform its form, and we take it with us into all the places of our lives, knowing that we have the courage and we have the strength to live in ways that treat one another as subjects to love, not as obstacles or objects. And so we go with the strength and the courage to make it so.